New York City goes full commie? Whoa, not so fast. The radical left, just to the wall, and it's their own guy. Zoran Mamdani, the anti-capitalist New York City mayoral candidate, just got heckled by a pro-Palestinian activist. Not for being too extreme, but not being extreme enough. He built his whole campaign around socialist slogans, anti-white rhetoric, and Marxist policy. And now the mob wants blood. And Zoran, he flinched. You could see it in his eyes. You know what to do. Like this video, subscribe, and ring that bell. Because if chaos spreads to your city, you're gonna want receipts. Roll the tape.
Hurry up.
So, for people who say that America was built on, and a lot of immigrants, and obviously you speak from an immigrant experience. I mean, you came as a young child, but you speak to a lot of people who came much more recently, that they come to America because they believe in capitalism. They believe that if they work hard and make a lot of money, that's part of the American dream. Do you think that's not part of the American dream?
I think the dream at its core is a dream for stability in one's life. And what you're saying, that you work hard enough and that you then reap the benefits, too many New Yorkers, and Americans for that matter, are working 8 hours and then still feeling like they haven't made enough money to keep living in the city they call home. And ultimately, what I'm focused on is making the city affordable for everyone, not to win an ideological argument, but to deliver on the mandate of this
Mayor
campaign.
Adams, you just...
Stability? That's not the American dream. That's bare minimum. People don't cross oceans for rent control. They come here to rise. Stability is the dream of socialist countries where there is no food and no future. Zoran wants to swap the ladder of success for a government crib. He's not building stability, he's building dependency. The American dream, it's not just about surviving, it's about thriving. And this guy wants to run New York City while rejecting the very values that made it great. Let's dig deeper into what he really believes.
So when people say democratic socialist, right? And I'm curious what you think this means. I mean, do you like capitalism?
No, I have many critiques of capitalism. And I think ultimately the definition for me of why I call myself a democratic socialist is the words of Dr. King decades ago. He said, call it democracy or call it democratic socialism, there must be a better distribution of wealth for all of God's children in this country. And that's what I'm focused on, is dignity and taking on income inequality. And for too long, politicians have pretended that we're spectators to that crisis of affordability. We're actually actors, and we have the choice to exacerbate it, like Mayor Adams has done, or to respond to it and resolve it, like I'm planning to do.
Of course he hates capitalism, and yet he's running to lead the capital of capitalism. Make that make sense. You can't hate the system and still try to profit off of it. Dr. King fought for justice, not a government-ran grocery store. Better distribution is Marxist code for take what you built and hand it to someone else. In America, wealth is earned, not reassigned. He doesn't want to lift the poor up. He wants to pull the successful down. But even that wasn't enough for his base.
What do you say? I have a question. What do you say about politicians that constantly reaffirm Israel's right to exist? Because people like me are constantly attacked by politicians for standing up for Palestine, and you are constantly defending the right for Israel to exist. My family is in Palestine right now, constantly under attack, and I'm hearing you say free Palestine, but also Israel has the right to exist. Don't be hypocritical. Don't be hypocritical and say free Palestine when you're also defending the right for Israel to exist. It does not have the right to exist. It does not have the right to exist. It's not your land to say it has the right to exist.
Woo!
Now we've crossed into full-on crazy. Zoran's whole stick is all about being anti-West, anti-capitalist, anti-white, and still, that ain't radical enough. His own side wants genocide now. You feed the revolution, and it starts biting your hand off. They don't want peace, they want erasure. Zoran stood there frozen, like he finally realized who he'd been pandering to. The mob doesn't want a mayor, they want a puppet with no brakes. And it's rich, coming from the guy who once said,
oftentimes we've even found as legislators, when we go into these courts, the term violent crime is even used when people are stealing packages. Violent crime is even used when people are accused of burglary and there happens to be a housing unit in that same dwelling. So violence is an artificial construction. And we have to be very clear that what is happening here with these district attorneys, that is violence. That is violence of the highest degree.
So burglary isn't violence, but mean tweets are? This man said violence is fake until he nearly got dropped by one of his own. Welcome to the left's world. Reality is optional. Violence is constructed, but words are literal weapons. He doesn't believe in jails until the heat's aimed at him. And now the same radicals he armed with rhetoric are turning on him with their fists. This is what happens when you pretend chaos is justice. And just to underscore how far this disconnect goes,
Cierra los ojos. Cierra los ojos.
Yo me puedo llevar eso para la casa.
Nadie te va a preguntar de dónde lo conseguí. Nadie va.
Tú solo. Uno.
Con esto puedo hacer ejercicio. Mira la gente aquí como se va. Mira los boliches tan negros. Demasiado, mija, demasiado. Demasiado.
Manzana.
Qué rico hacer. Qué rico hacer. Que los papeles míos de la entrada aquí me decían que yo era un alienígena. Y yo ahora veo esto y yo digo, es que soy un alienígena.
that man lived under socialism, and just to see a store with meat in it brought him to tears. He cried over groceries. Let that sink in. That's what the real cost of communism looks like: hunger and helplessness. Meanwhile, Zoran wants to recreate that misery in the name of equality. The only people that cheer for socialism are those who have never lived through it. People flee communism. They fight to come here, and Zoran's trying to reverse that. So who's standing in the way of this lunacy? You know who. One man spoke up.
I think he's terrible. He's a communist. The last thing we need is a communist. I said there will never be socialism in the United States. Now we have a communist. I think he's bad news, and I think I'm going to have a lot of fun with him, watching him, because he has to come right to this building to get his money. And don't worry, he's not going to run away with anything. I think he's, frankly, I've heard he's a total nut job. I think the people in New York are crazy. If they go this route, I think they're crazy. We will have a communist for the first time, really, a pure, true communist. He wants to operate the grocery stores, the department stores. What about the people that are there? I think it's crazy.
Trump called it. You give this guy power, and he'll turn the Empire State into a welfare line. Bread lines on Broadway. That's what this man is pitching. No cops, no capitalism, no chance. He thinks businesses will actually stick around while he doubles their taxes. Watch the rich leave, watch crime explode, and watch his whole fantasy crumble. And when it does, he'll still blame capitalism for the mess he made. The bottom line is, you build a monster, it will eat you. Zoran Mamdani is finding out the hard way. When you campaign on chaos, you eventually become the target. He thought he could ride that radical wave to power, but they don't want reform. They want collapse. He tried to appease the mob. Now that mob wants to erase him too. This is exactly what happens when you light fires and pretend you won't get burned. Zoran is shaking, and for once, he should be. Let me hear your thoughts and comments. What happens when radical movements start turning on their own leaders? Can a candidate who openly opposes capitalism lead the capital of capitalism? Why do people that live in free nations romanticize systems that starve and oppress? Should we actually take candidates seriously who think violence is a construct? What lessons can voters take from people who actually escaped socialism? When New York City flirts with communism, the rest of the country should pay attention. You know what to do. Hit that like, subscribe, and if you haven't, share this with someone who still thinks socialism works. Thank you. God bless.
Listen.